Hey everybody, my name is Brandon from thestockstudios.com, and today I want to talk about BlackBerry Stock, ticker symbol BB, and how it is up over 10% in a single day. What I'm going to do first is go into Google and talk about the macro story of BlackBerry Stock, and then I'm going to go into the earnings report to talk about how BlackBerry is doing as a business, and then we're going to go into the trading charts to see if there's a level or two to buy BlackBerry if we want to buy BlackBerry. So now let's get started. So here we are on Google, and here's a one-day view of BlackBerry stock charts here, and we can see during the day we did have a decent move, outperforming the S&P 500 up about 2%, but the real story here is in the after hours, where we can see we jumped over 10% at one point for the day. So the question is, what happened here in the after hours actions that caused investors to pile into the stock? And the answer to that is earnings. BlackBerry just released earnings today, which caused the stock to bounce, which we can see in the news here. We will get into the earnings report in the next section of the video, but as always, I want to talk about the macro story of what's going on here, what is going on in the world, and how that is affecting BlackBerry. And if we look back here, what caused the stock to drop about 40% in about 4 months, and also actually increase BlackBerry stock price up 50% year to date. So obviously from this year to date view, we are seeing some incredible bouts of volatility here. And obviously that is due to Reddit and Wall Street Bets driving up stocks like BlackBerry and GameStop. That's no surprise, and that sharp rise in valuation was likely unsustainable at those levels. The share price resulted in an extraordinarily high market cap, which resulted in a valuation that the market decided BlackBerry did not deserve at that moment. This explains why the market pushed the stock back down 40% in 4 months, but now the question is, what is going on in the world that helped push BlackBerry stock upwards year to date? What macro story can BlackBerry transfigure itself to make itself perhaps worthy of the valuations it obtained during these momentum spikes here? Asking these questions brings me to the main point of the video here, which is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity will be needed for the future. The world is dependent on technology right now and will be even more dependent on technology for the future. Think about what is being housed on the internet for yourself right now. Your email, your bank accounts, your grandma's Facebook page. All of these things are on the web, and anything on the web is vulnerable for hacking. But to me, if these examples I just listed get hacked, I wouldn't be too happy, but to me that's not scary. What's scary, in my opinion, is the hacks on oil pipelines, like the one that we saw in the US on the Colonial Pipeline, which caused panic throughout the South. Or the hack against JBS, a meatpacking plant, which was a hack against our national food supply chain. And this is not just an American problem here, this is a global international issue. Look at this reported hack today coming out of India, with TechJury's estimate of about 300,000 new types of malware created every single day. This is scary stuff, and this is why we need cybersecurity companies like Zscaler, like Palo Alto Networks, or maybe even BlackBerry to help solve some of these problems. Again, I've said this before, a lot of people still think of BlackBerry as a phone-making company, but to give one answer to the question of why I think we are up 50% year to date is because I think BlackBerry is trying to transition itself into a cybersecurity company and an Internet of Things company. If we take a look at BlackBerry's own website here, under the solutions of what the company is actually selling, to me, their product catalog is not one that is cell phone based. This looks like they are doubling down on cybersecurity solutions to sell. And as I said before, as the world sees more cyber threats, more companies will need to update and increase their security for the next few years, and investors of BlackBerry are guessing that maybe some of these companies will be choosing to use BlackBerry's products to secure their online services. So after talking about the macro bull cases for BlackBerry, now let's head on over to the just released earnings report to see how BlackBerry is doing as a business. So here we are in BlackBerry's earnings report, and we can see that this column here is the one for the most recent quarter ending on August 31st, 2021, and that's compared to a quarter-over-quarter view in this column here, and that's compared to a year-over-year view for the quarter ending on August 31st, 2020 in this column here. The first thing I want to point out here is that quarter-over-quarter, this company looks to be the definition of consistency. We get nearly the same top line revenue quarter-over-quarter, around $175 million. But the main thing I want to point out here is actually the year-over-year views for top line revenue. So we can see that last year we made about $260 million for the quarter, but this year we are only making around $175 million for the same quarter this year, and I'm not too sure why we are dropping here. This may have been pulled forward demand from the health crisis last year, where we may have borrowed growth from this year and gave it to boost the numbers from last year. But again, I'm not too sure why we have dropped that substantially. The other thing I want to point out here is the cost of sales, which is this line on the earnings report here. We can see that we are extremely consistent on our cost of sales. All of the reported quarters are around $60 million. This consistency in cost of sales is actually normally found in stable software businesses. The reason is because, with software, the cost of the thing is normally coding the programs. And after that, it doesn't really cost a whole lot to distribute to your customers. What this means for BlackBerry holders is that in order to see substantial positive cash flow for the stock, BlackBerry has to increase top-line revenues here because this cost of sales here will likely be consistently $60 million. It will likely be $60 million no matter if they sell $175 million or $259 million or even $400 million. So because your cost of sales are staying consistent, you really want to boost up your revenues. Lastly here, I just want to talk about operating expenses, which is this block on the earnings report here. And we can see that year over year, we are actually increasing pretty substantially the total operating expenses here, which leads to a near tripling of the operating loss. But if we actually look into the detailed view of what's going on in this operating expenses here, we actually see something interesting. So if we look at the two categories that I normally look at operating expenses, which is research and development and sales and administrative, we can see that year over year, we're actually not increasing operating expenses that much. We're actually pretty steady. So the dramatic increase in operating expenses is not coming from these two sections here. If we look where the extra outgoing money is coming from, is actually from this line here, which is accounted for in debentures fair value adjustments. So what this is that it's not really money that the company is spending here. It's a bit like a debt security. So because of that, I don't really think that is telling me a whole lot about the efficiency of the company. To look at the efficiency of the company, I normally just focus on these two sections here. So because of that, I do not really include that in my opinion on the stock as a whole. But the question is, why did this earnings report boost the stock up 8 or 10% after hours? I think that the reason why the stock boosted on this earnings report is because of a combination that the macro market was up the day of the announcement, so the sentiment was pretty good, and that the net loss here was smaller than expected by the people on the street. But the main thing here that investors should be focused on is top-line revenue growth. BlackBerry is trying to pivot itself into the high-growth field of cybersecurity. BlackBerry, to me, needs to prove that it can actually perform and attract customers. So with all that said, now let's head on over to the trading charts to see if there's a level or two to buy BlackBerry if we want to buy BlackBerry. So here we are in BlackBerry's trading charts, and we can see that the momentum currently has declined dramatically since the momentum burst back in June. First things first, we can see here that we ended the day of regular trading around the 950s, but we have gapped up to around here in the after hours session, right at this resistance level around the $10.50 level. We can see here that we actually had a pretty strong support level around this 950 where we ended today at, tested by these candles over here, this candle over here, and this candle over here. So the trading range that I'm seeing for the stock right now is between this support level around 950 and this resistance level around 1050, or about a 10% range here. And there is even potential to get up to this candle over here around the $12. Right now, post-market, we are smack in the middle of the range here around 1050, like I said previously. So because of that, I think we are about 50-50 odds to the downside and to the upside. And for me, that's not really odds that I want. If we start seeing huge momentum again, similar to what we saw back in June with AMC or with GameStop, then I think that this could be a good entry level to the stock. However, the risk is that the momentum never comes. So if we fail at this $10.50 level or this $12 level here, then we could be heading back down to the $9.50s or even as low as these candles over here, which is around $8.70. But again, if we do get the momentum burst from Reddit, then I would not be surprised if we are able to reach all the way to these candles back up here, back from June. So again, I think waiting until we hit this $9.50 level again or below may be a better entry point for the stock right now, unless you see another rise in momentum coming from Reddit that I'm not seeing yet. Looking at the MACD and RSI here, they're both not telling me that much, But the MACD chart here, which is this one here, you can see that the blue line, which is representing our short-term momentum, is underneath our orange line here, which is representing our long-term momentum, which is saying that our short-term momentum is weaker than our long-term momentum at the moment, which is a bit bearish for BlackBerry. But it is not including this after hours move, so we may have actually crossed over this orange line here for the short-term momentum, which may be bullish for the stock. We will have to check back tomorrow to see the updated calculation. The RSI here, which is the relative strength index, we can see that it is neither in the overbought territory nor the oversold territory, so this is not telling me that much. You could say that there could be a slight bounce from the oversold territory up here to the minor overbought territory, but to me that's a stretch, and I would definitely not want to make a decision based on that. So that was my review on BlackBerry stock. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. If you have any questions or if you caught any mistakes, also drop me a comment down below. If you liked the video, please like the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.